In a quiet, dimly lit room, where the chatter of morning television plays like an endless loop, there are silences that often go unnoticed. Silences that exist behind the laughter, behind the carefully painted smiles, and behind the carefully scripted lines. Today, we draw back that curtain. Because this is not just another celebrity story. This is the story of Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos, a couple who, for more than 2 decades, have been the image of love, strength, and perseverance. Their relationship has inspired millions. Their chemistry has lit up screens, and their laughter has felt like home to countless fans. Yet today, they find themselves in the group of something that fame, fortune, and success cannot shield anyone from: loss. And this is not just a story about grief. It's a story about what loss reveals, about the unspoken wisdom passed down through generations, about the bonds that tether us together when everything else falls apart, and about love, tested, bruised, but still unbroken. When most people picture Kelly, the image that comes to mind is her infectious smile. For nearly 20 years, she's been the bright spark of American mornings. With her energy and warmth on Live with Kelly and Mark, she turned an ordinary broadcast into something deeply personal. Alongside her husband, Mark, she built not just a career, but an identity that millions could look to as a symbol of family, stability, and joy. But what many forget is this: nobody, no matter how famous or admired, is immune to life's storms. Grief doesn't ask who you are. It doesn't care how many people know your name. It comes suddenly, silently, and when it arrives, it shakes the ground beneath you. For Kelly and Mark, it started quietly: a whisper, a change, a shadow that grew until it was impossible to ignore. And then the moment came. A bereavement that tore through their lives. A loss so profound, it shook the foundation of their family and left them reeling in sorrow. This wasn't just about losing someone. It was about losing a guiding presence, a parent figure, a thread woven so deeply into their lives that pulling on it unraveled an entire fabric of memory, comfort, and belonging. Think about that for a moment. The people who raise us, who teach us lessons without ever saying a word, who hold us through our first heartbreaks, who quietly guide us even when we're grown adults, they are the silent architecture of our lives. And when one of those voices goes silent forever, it doesn't feel like one piece of life has gone missing. It feels like the entire structure could come crashing down. For Kelly and Mark, the loss brought an abrupt realization that time is fragile, that voices you expect to hear on the other end of the phone may never answer again, that love, no matter how deeply rooted, comes with the sharp edge of goodbye. But here's the remarkable part. In the midst of that heartbreak, something beautiful emerged, and it's the reason people continue to be captivated by Kelly and Mark's story. Kelly did something few public figures dare to do. She stepped away. She pressed pause on her commitments, not to escape, but to fully grieve alongside her family. She chose silence over performance, authenticity over appearances. She allowed herself to hurt, openly and honestly, in a way that reminded her audience that even behind the brightest smiles, there are moments of darkness. She let people in. She shared glimpses of her grief. Not for attention, not for headlines, but as a way of saying, you are not alone. For her fans, who had grown used to her being their source of laughter, this was something different. Vulnerability, humanity, and it struck a chord. Messages poured in from people who had endured their own losses. Viewers in their 60s and 70s who knew the pain of losing parents. Young adults who had watched Kelly for years and now saw her not just as a host, but as a human being navigating the same heartbreaks as everyone else. Her honesty did something extraordinary. It turned grief into connection. It turned silence into solidarity. It reminded people that the first step in healing is not pretending you're fine. It's allowing yourself to say, I'm not. Mark, too, showed a quieter side. Known for his humor and strength, he pulled back, posting fewer updates, choosing stillness over noise. Together, they modeled something powerful. Not perfection, not polished images of we're fine, but real partnership, real grief, real love. And what about their children? Michael, Lola, and Joaquin. Each of them grew up in the public eye, but at this moment, their family faced something that had nothing to do with cameras or scripts. Kelly and Mark's priority was clear: protect their kids, give them space, and let them grieve in their own way. That balance between public life and private mourning wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And it showed fans once again that beneath the fame, this was, first and foremost, a family. Fans across the world felt the shift. Social media flooded with condolences, prayers, and heartfelt words. Not because Kelly and Mark were celebrities, but because grief is universal. People saw their pain and recognized their own. In that shared space, something rare happened. People found comfort, knowing that loss, though devastating, does not isolate us. It binds us together. Kelly once said in a moment of reflection, "Loss makes you rethink everything. Your priorities, your time, your choices. It makes you stop and ask, what really matters?" And maybe that's the lesson at the heart of this story. For years, Kelly's mornings were filled with bright lights, makeup chairs, and millions of viewers. But loss reminded her of what matters most when all of that fades away. The quiet mornings at home, the conversations over coffee, the sound of her children's laughter echoing through the house, the hand of the person you love still reaching for yours in the dark. That's the wisdom grief leaves behind. That's the hidden gift inside the pain. And yet, their story doesn't end in despair. Because love, even when shaken, has a way of steadying us. Kelly and Mark's resilience, choosing to walk through sorrow hand in hand rather than apart, showed their fans the power of unity. They didn't let tragedy divide them, they let it deepen them. This is why people remain captivated. Not just because Kelly and Mark are familiar faces, but because their journey mirrors our own. They remind us that resilience doesn't mean never breaking. It means breaking and still finding the strength to keep going. So where does this leave us? What do we take from their story? Maybe it's this: when grief comes, and it will come for us all, don't rush to cover it up. Don't rush to return to normal. Sit with it. Share it. Allow it to reshape the way you see your life. Because loss, painful as it is, often gives us the clearest vision of what truly matters. For Kelly and Mark, that clarity has been simple yet profound. Family, togetherness, love that outlives even the hardest days. Their farewell to the loved one they lost will never stop hurting. But in that pain, they've discovered a truth worth holding on to. That while we cannot stop time, while we cannot prevent goodbyes, we can choose how we live the moments we still have. Kelly once left her audience with a message that feels even more powerful now. Love wins, but it always asks for something in return. It asks for sacrifice. It asks for courage. It asks us to walk through storms we'd rather avoid. And sometimes it asks us to face the unbearable truth of goodbye. But in the end, love still wins. It wins when families choose to stay close. It wins when partners carry each other through the hardest days. It wins when vulnerability creates connection instead of distance. And maybe that's the takeaway from Kelly and Mark's heartbreaking chapter. That even in the darkest valleys, love is the thread that refuses to snap. It bends, it aches, but it holds. So as we reflect on their journey, maybe we should ask ourselves the same question grief forced them to face. what really matters. Because the applause, the careers, the material successes, those things fade. But the love we give, the family we nurture, the hands we hold, those are the things that remain. Kelly and Mark's story is not just about loss. It's about the endurance of love. And it's a reminder for all of us that even in the hardest goodbyes, love still has the final word.